While I was out shopping for some decor for my garden, I noticed that there was a lot of really cool solar lights. So I wanted to use some of those in today's projects. Let's get started. So I found this strand of some fairy lights at Walmart. Walmart had so many really unique solar light options, so you'll definitely want to go and check it out. This one was a strand of fairy lights. There was 100, and it was a really long strand too, so you could use these anywhere. You could probably string them up somewhere, place them on a tree like they have on the box. You can see here it is 32.5 feet. I have these 2 tomato cages that I put together. It's from a project several years ago, and I thought it would be perfect to use in today's project. So you can see how I've got 2 of them put together. I've got them offset so that there's good support all around. I use hot glue and some wire to put it together at the top. So I've got it sitting in a pot, and now before I carry on, I'm going to first string the lights onto the tomato cages. So I will admit I probably would have had an easier time if I had another set of hands. So if you've got another set of hands, then I would suggest doing that, because it did get a little awkward for me. But I decided to do this one on my front porch. And what I did was just wrap them around. They are wired, so it made it really easy to apply. I did need to anchor them into place occasionally, and I'll show you that here in a moment. Once I got to the top, I secured it by just wrapping it around a few times at the top there, and then I started to make my way back down. So this is where I discovered that it kept on slipping. So I am using some twist ties to help hold the wires into place onto the tomato cage, and that prevent them from slipping around. Because as I was twisting it, they just kept on, I don't know, maybe it was the memory in the wire. It just kept on wanting to spring back up. And of course, I didn't want that to keep happening. So I just anchored it in a few spots. Once you have them in place, you can just kind of move them around a bit if you need to, just so they're a little bit more even. Now, it is still too early for me to plant real plants outside, so I'm just going to show you what this can look like with artificial. Of course, if you don't want to grow real with this, you can just leave the artificial, but I do plan on maybe using some potato vine or some ivy or something like that on this. But of course, I have to wait until it's a little bit warmer for me to start planting. So I'm just going to use an assortment of some vines that I had already in my stash. I'm going to wrap those around. This was a really easy and fun project. It was so pretty once complete. This would be really nice for a wedding as well. I thought it would be a really pretty touch. You could use lights that are battery operated or plug-in if you had them for an event through the summer. But I'm going to just show you what it will look like on my front porch, but I do plan on putting this on my sun deck. So to fill it in, I'm just adding some artificial greenery around the base. Again, because when I actually plant this up with real plants, I plan on allowing the plants to drape over the edge as well. And I also place some in the center because that will all be full as well. So this looks so pretty. I don't know, there's just something about it. It's such a unique piece. I thought it was a great way to use these solar lights. Okay, this is going to be a fun one. I got this jar from Dollar Tree, and I thought it would be really cool to create a glowing globe over top of this disc solar light that I picked up from Walmart. You can see how when I flip it upside down, it fits over that solar disc perfectly. Now I wanted to keep it looking like a jar, so I removed the seal off the lid, and I'm going to attach the lid to the bottom of the jar using some Gorilla silicone seal. And I'm also going to use just a few dabs of some hot glue just to give me that instant hold, but majority of it is going to be held together by the Gorilla sealant. So now I'll add just a few dabs of the hot glue, and then you need to work quite quickly because it'll set up really fast. I'm going to place that onto the bottom of the jar, and then you need to let that cure. You can smooth out the sealant around the jar lid as well. Once it's all set up, you can then decorate it a little bit here. I'm just going to use some jute. I wanted to just hide that silicone because it did show a little bit. So the twine worked perfectly for that. Wrapped it around a few times, and then I'm just going to tie it off with a simple knot. I found this cute little fairy at Dollar Tree, and I'm going to be using these wood beads to mount her on top of this disc. So you can see there's a few blank spots there. Adding her won't cover up any of the solar panels. So you do want a really good strong glue. So I highly recommend using some Gorilla hot glue sticks. They hold really well. So I'm going to go ahead and apply the hot glue and then put her into place again right where there are no solar sensors. So you got to make sure you don't cover up any of the sensors. You can see she is sitting above a light, which is totally fine, but it's not covering up any of the sensors. So I didn't like the stainless steel here. I didn't think it would look right with the whimsical touch. So I'm covering it up using some hot glue and some dried preserved moss. Now I don't plan on having this out in the open. I'm going to have this kind of undercover so the light will still get at it, but it's going to be protected from any rain that we may get. So all you have to do is put the lid on top, and then you can see how sweet this looks. You can even use this piece inside your home. Just make sure to put it in a nice bright sunny spot. I picked up this spotlight solar light from Dollar Tree last year. I'm not sure if they still carry these or not, so if they do, please let me know down in the comments section, just removing their label. So I wanted to cover it up because I don't like the plastic. So I'm going to cover this up with some sheets of moss. So this moss is backed onto some green burlap. I'm just going to use some scraps that I had left over from a project. You want to make sure that you cut out some notches so that you don't cover up the solar panel. And then I'm just going to again use some hot glue. I do recommend the Gorilla hot glue, and you're going to put this into place. Another option would again be to use a combination of the silicone as well as the hot glue together. And then the silicone I know lasts outside really well. I've used it a few times. The hot glue, I'm not sure how well and how long it will last outside. It really depends on the heat where you are at. And it does get hot where I live, but I still have got some other pieces that are just using the hot glue, and so far they're okay. So I will keep you posted. I'm going to again just continue to cover this whole thing up with the sheets of moss, and then I'm going to go in and I'm going to add some preserved dry reindeer moss that I have. This isn't the soft and supple type. This is quite dry. Now I don't know how well again this is going to hold up outside in the rain, so I do plan on having this one again undercover in a pot. It won't be exposed to the rain. It will be exposed to lots of light, but not in the rain because this is dyed. So I'm not sure if the dye will run if it's in the rain. You know what? I actually should test that out so I can let you know for sure. But I still wanted to try this out. I think it's a fun idea. It is a great way to cover up the solar light and helps it to blend in with your natural surroundings. You definitely could use real foraged moss. I have foraged moss before and used it in different projects, so there's definitely that option. And then you wouldn't even have to worry about leaching any dye. The only thing is though, is it will fade over time, so do keep that in mind. So I'm just going to go ahead and cover up the back side of this as well. And then that's it. It was such a simple and easy project. I think it looks great. It's such a fun and whimsical idea. So this next project is a bit of a tricky one, but it's something I've been wanting to try out for a while. I'm using this jar that's got a little chip in it, and I'm also going to be using this used canning lid. I needed to punch out a few holes so I can cut out a square out of the top of this. And so I'm using my big chomper from Crocodile. You can get these at Michael's, any craft store, as well as on Amazon. So now that I've got some holes punched out, I'm now using some wire snips and I'm going to cut into the metal like you see me doing right here. And then I'm just going to fold back those edges. That's going to open it up. I also cut it kind of on an angle so I could create a square shape. It wasn't perfect, but you'll see here in a moment how I'm going to be using this particular solar light I got from Walmart. You can get them from Dollar Tree. I've seen them all over the place. You need to measure once in a while to make sure it fits over your solar panel. You need to leave the solar panel exposed. Once done, I'm going to hammer down the edges. It's quite sharp, so you might want to use gloves. I'm also using removing the battery tab, putting it all back together. And now I'm going to again use a combination of my Gorilla silicone sealant as well as my hot glue. And I'm going to adhere the solar light to the lid. So you want to add just a bead on two sides with the sealant, and then you want to add some hot glue on the opposite sides. That way here, again, you will have that instant hold as well as the long-term hold of the sealant. So I'm going to put the lid on top of there, and I'm going to flip it upside down and I'm going to press that into place. But before I carry on here, I'm going to add another bead of the silicone all the way around the edge of the lid and the solar light. That will seal it all up so no water will get inside our jar. I have done this on another project where I used some owl jars. I will have that video linked down below for you. It is a really cool project as well if you can find some owl jars, but I did the same process as I am doing here. So now I'm going to set that aside and allow it to set up. I'm going to use these branches that I had foraged on a walk. I'm going to cut them down to the height of my jar. I'm allowing some of the branches to be a little bit taller, and I'm going to just create an assortment of some sizes here. I like to use these branches that have got really cool orange lichen on them, kind of a golden yellow lichen. It's pretty texture, and these particular sticks are really sturdy. So when you're out looking for sticks, you want to make sure you find something that's nice and sturdy. So again, you want to use some Gorilla hot glue for this, or any really good glue. One thing I discovered as I was doing this project was that the hot glue did show. So keep that in mind as you're applying your hot glue. You want to make sure you are careful not to get it too globby, because I did in a few spots and you could definitely see it once it sets. So there are different options out there. You could try to use some silicone for this project, a combination of silicone and hot glue. But as you can see, I just ran a bead on the back side of my branch once I've got the placement figured out. And I'm going to press that into place. It sets up very, very quickly. I put the bigger branches into place first, and now I'm going to start to fill it in with my smaller branches. You want to allow those to set, and then you can carry on and start to fill it in. I allowed some of the unique pieces to overlap each other, but you can see how this is coming together. It is really, really cool. I really like the effect, but like I said, it was a little tricky because you can see I needed to prop something up, because as I was working on it, I couldn't lay it flat. I needed the top of my jar to kind of be up and the bottom end to be down because of the way the branches were laying on the jar. I found that as I was working, they kept on popping off when I was trying to lay it down flat, and I pushed my branches into place, and I hope that makes sense. Anyways, now I'm going to go ahead and just fill in some smaller pieces, add some textural pieces, and then you do want to make sure that you don't add too many, that you end up covering up the rim too much. I did end up running into that issue, so I will show you how I rectified that. But in the meantime, I'm just going to continue to fill in my jar. So I'm really happy with how this looks. So now I'm going to test to see if the lid fits. But I notice here that I had some branches sticking or in my way, and you can see I'm struggling with getting my lid in there. So I ended up having to trim just a few of the branches, and this was tricky. That's why I recommend, if you can prevent that in the first place, then you don't have to do this. But if you do, you just have to try to trim it out. So I wanted to, again, create a good seal. So I'm going to add a bead of the silicone to the lid rim. And then I'm going to attach the lid with the solar light into that hot glue, into the silicone, also using hot glue. Press that, and then you want to flip it back over, add a little bit more silicone here and there. We are creating a seal so no water will get inside. I thought I would try to see how this will hold up out in the elements. I'm going to cover the lid with some moss. You could skip this part and just add the lid as is, but my top of my lid does not look very pretty. So I'm like, I'm going to try to just cover this up. You could just spray paint this if you are concerned about the moss, maybe disintegrating or something out in the elements. I'm not too concerned about that. I like to experiment and play around to see what works, what doesn't. And then if it works out, I will definitely try it again and I will let you know. But in the meantime, let's just have some fun with this. So I'm going to just cover that up with moss. Again, the same preserved reindeer moss that I was using before. So now that I had the moss on, I thought, oh, I better see if this lid is going to fit again. And you can see I struggled a little bit, but it turns out all that happened was that I got a branch in my way. So I just moved that a little bit, and then this fit on top, and I was able to screw that back on. And now I decided I'm going to cover up the top there with this preserved reindeer moss, the same stuff I was using before. You just want to be sure that you do not cover up your solar panel. I should have opened up that lid just a little bit more. You can see how some of the solar panel was covered up a little bit, and in time I'll show you here, it does affect the charging capability a little bit, and the moss and the branches do as well. So if you do this project, make sure it gets lots of sunlight, and then if you're concerned about the elements, once it's charged up, you can then put it under cover. I'm using a blow dryer to melt the glue strings because there was quite a few and it had kind of a cobwebby look. It didn't look very pleasant, so I wanted to get rid of all those, and this works great. I'm going to use some twine. I'm going to wrap it around a few times. That's going to help to hold the twigs into place, just in case that hot glue doesn't by chance hold up in the heat. This will just, like I said, it'll help to hold them in place. So I'm going to wrap it around several times. You could wrap it around all the way up. I just did it at the base, and that will again just help to hold it all together. So I'm just going to do a simple knot for this. So I really like this one. It is a great experiment. Now the solar light, it was affected a bit. So I decided that I would try to do this another step. And I'm gonna just show you what it looks like though. Here on its own, it looks really good. I had it charged up really well in the sunlight, but if you struggle like I did, then here is another option. So as an alternative, I decided I'd put the jar on top of this disc, again, solar light disc, and you can see the beautiful glow that it has. So this is not going to remain attached like this. I have to charge up the disc when it's not in use, but you can see that it turned out really well. If you're looking for some planters, I've got this video right here for you to check out. I want to thank you all so much for joining me today. Let me know your favorite project, and we will see you in the next one. Take care. Bye.